Hello there and welcome back to another episode of Focal Point, where we seek answers to the myriad of crises Sri Lanka is currently embroiled in. Last week we spoke about the economic aspect of Sri Lanka's woes, and today we will be discussing another pertinent topic, and that is the societal aspect of the complications Sri Lanka is currently facing. I am Prabha Manuratne for the Newsfirst team, and today we are joined by a very eminent personality. She is none other than Dr. Prabha Manuratne. She is a social activist and also attached to the Department of English at the University of Kelaniya. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and joining us, Dr. Prabha.
Thank you for having me, Jamal.
Today we will be talking about three key points, and I want to get straight to the first point with you, Doctor. Let's talk about the rise of Sri Lanka's next generation. Amidst all these crises, we have seen a new wave of protesters, a new wave of citizens coming forward. Some people have discounted them as having festivals, and they seem to be protesting in a different way to that of the old guard, of the older generations. Do you think that it is less effective? Do you think it is ineffective that they are not resorting to mass protests and chants and whatnot, but they are doing what they are doing to project their dissent and their displeasure over the current regime?
I think this is the most effective and greatest generation we've had for some time. I mean, they've really risen up to the occasion. They have discovered something that we desperately needed in this country. So I think I'm one of those people who tend to think that this generation, I mean, just 2-3 years ago, even someone like me, just who works very closely at the university, I work with a lot of young people. I have seen how much they struggle with the realities that they have to contend with, and this is just an amazing comeback for a generation that has had to deal with so much and who were beginning to feel really quite hopeless. So I think what they have brought is hope for their generation, as well as to everyone else in the country. As for the festive mood that a lot of people have found fault with, I think art, music, performance, dance, these have always been central to protests and to resistance. There has been no resistance in the world that has not used art, music and performance. Particularly if you look at Occupy movements and resistance movements in the world in the last 10 to 15, even 20 years, I think, going all the way back to the World Social Forum, these have been the critical features of nonviolent protesting across the world. So these young people are learning from their peers. They are learning, I mean, they're very smart. Many of them are bilingual. They're very tech savvy. So, I mean, you go online and you find creative ways of responding to crises of this nature. So I think what they're doing is what they're very good at doing. They are discovering what is available out there to create something new, and it has been an amazing moment, I think. And what is valuable about what they're creating by engaging in song, music, dance, protest, it may not be the kind of music that, you know, older people like or one would associate with protest, but that doesn't matter as long as people are singing, because it's that they're creating something collective. They're not creating anger, they are creating solidarity, and they are celebrating something that they're also very young. Right? I mean, you're not as serious when you're young. It's okay to enjoy what you're doing when you're young. So I think that has been an amazing movement. It has sustained this movement, if one could call it a movement. I think it's quite early in the day, but it is a very vibrant. It's a very vibrant movement that is emerging, and I think this festivity is very much a part of it. I don't think that it's a problem. I think, in fact, it is its strength in many ways.
Dr. Prabha, let's talk about creating a just and moral society. Sri Lanka needs to move forward beyond this movement, beyond these protests. When these protests die down, when the dust settles, Sri Lanka needs to progress. And this generation, our generation, I would proudly say so, we need to create a better society for those who are yet to be born. How do you think we can go about doing so? Because Sri Lanka's track record when it comes to this societal aspect has somewhat been stagnant over the years. I'm sure you would agree. So in such a context, where do you think Sri Lanka needs to get it right in order for us to progress and to create a progressive society thereon?
Yeah, that's a great question, and things are so uncertain right now. It's very hard to predict what will happen in the coming days. But given what we have seen in the last several weeks, actually several months, if you think about it, is that people have come to a new awareness that you can't get away with corruption, that you can't get away with stealing money, stealing public funds, that you need to be peaceful, but you also need to protest. And the sort of the general sense of disillusionment, this sense that there is nothing we can do, that we can't change anything in life, that has changed. So I think what we have seen in the last few weeks, particularly with the new slogans and the sort of the funny things that people are saying, the satire, I mean, what you see at the heart of all of that is the setting of new moral standards in terms of calling out on people who have allegedly stolen public funds, but also in their actions caring for the environment, being, looking out for people. I mean, if you look at what in the just at this Occupy site, what they have created, I mean, we are on the brink of a massive economic catastrophe. It has already arrived. But what have these young people been creating? They've been making libraries. They've been making medical centers, right? They are really, I think, we have seen a resurgence of care and solidarity that we have not seen in this country for a very, very long time. So I think those standards, the social and ethical standards that can change our society, are being formed in very organic ways, right? And we will take time. I think there are areas in which we need to develop more, think about more, particularly when it comes to interracial, interreligious, interethnic harmony. I mean, it will take time. These are long wounds that our society have experienced, so it's not going to just change overnight. But there is a real need, there is a real, I feel that there is a real need, and there's a real push on the part particularly of young people to stay united. So if those values that have divided people, alienated people and isolated people, this sort of self-serving and very selfish ways of approaching or thinking about life, if these change and there is a good sense of public accountability and a good sense of being responsible towards others, then I think our society in the long run will see the benefits of of a movement like this. As you say, it's going to end at some point, it's not going to last forever, but I think what people are experimenting with is how to create new and organically developed moral standards that can help our society to change and be transformed, and they're doing it legally, they're doing it constitutionally. Nobody is doing anything illegal. So that's, I think, the real beauty of that.
On that same note, Dr. Prabha, let me ask you how the current generation, the older generation of Sri Lanka, can assist this endeavor. Can you apprise us of that?
Yes, I think there are many ways in which the older people can come in, and I think there is a lot that older people of my generation can learn from young people. There's a lot that we can learn from people from your generation. We need to acknowledge that, and we need to be humble about that. Without that, I don't think a conversation is even possible. But I think what we can share is the knowledge that has accumulated, particularly when it comes to legal means of recovery. I mean, there are many international standards, many international ways of recovering stolen assets, and there are many there are many ways you could go about doing this in a very responsible and constitutional manner. I think that is something that people who know about about those things can help young people with, because I think they're really looking for guidance in that. And the other thing is, even when it comes to protesting, communicating, I mean, there's a vast treasury of experience that older people have had living their lives just longer, but also having been through various kinds of difficult moments, including the war. Some people, I mean, I've seen people from the 71 uprising visit this Golf site. I mean, it's very moving to see them come and to sort of be so touched by what they see. And then there are people who have been through 87, 89, the second uprising in the south, the tsunami, the war. I mean, there are so many terrible experiences that we have learned many things from, and also the importance of learning from each other. You know, like in the northern and eastern part of our country, people have lived with a lot of difficulties for a long time. I think it is now time, with no electricity, with no
basic necessities.
I mean, we should try to learn from each other and support each other, and I think older people can facilitate that process and help people to be hopeful and fearless. What I don't like, sometimes I see this happening, what I don't like is people, you know, judging young people and saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't do it this way. I don't think that's going to work with this generation. I think it's really important to acknowledge what they've done, but also contribute in whatever way they can.
Dr. Prabha, let's talk about the final topic of our discussion for today. I want to talk about social media and the role that it has played in this movement and leveraging this movement to such an extent. Anyone who has a smartphone nowadays has access to social media. They can create either a Facebook, Twitter or whatever profile, and they can publish their or express their opinions, their ideas into the larger world out there. But there has to be some sort of morality, there has to be some sort of a sense of good judgment, if I may say so. How would you advise someone being an activist or someone who is aspiring to be an activist to use social media as a positive influence rather than a negative one?
To be honest, I think that should be a very organic process. I mean, there are many laws in place already to monitor our social media activism and what you're writing, what you're doing online. So there are many legal frameworks already available and many ways of regulating how people act online and what they say online. So that is already there. But I think what is lacking is an organic development of those moral standards. It's not enough that you have laws or moral ideas. What is necessary is that people internalize them and use them as practical, ethical standards that they will use in their activism. And I think for an activist or just even for a young person, I mean, it's a very simple thing: be the change that you want to see in the world. You know, if you act morally and if you act the word I prefer actually is ethically. If you are acting ethically, then you will set the standards, right? And that becomes the norm. Right? This is how our societies function. Once you become, and the young people are the norm setters now. So if you're responsible and if you're demanding responsibility from others, right, and insisting, even, for example, even if somebody is supporting you, if you feel that that is ethically wrong, what they're saying on Facebook, for example, is ethically wrong, point it out, even if it doesn't directly, you know, even if it's supportive of what you're trying to do. If you see something wrong, point it out. Critical engagement, disagreement, I mean, these are good things, these are not bad things. I think there is a space now to engage in these kinds of conversations. And what is really important, and once again, I think your generation has been really great about this, is to keep those spaces for conversation open. Right? It's really important that we keep the table open so that anyone can come in, engage peacefully, hopefully, but disagreements are good. Being critical is good. as long as we have a language to talk to each other and a certain trust that we are acting from a common assumption that this is done in good faith, and those who are not doing that will, I mean, we've seen that just in the last 2-3 days, somebody posts something terrible, other people will come in and say, just don't say that, we don't need that in this struggle. I've seen that's happening so many times in comments. People are saying, that's beneath us, don't do that, right? So if that becomes the norm, then I think the kind of responsible citizenship, and because ultimately this is about citizenship. This is what we've been trying to teach young people for the longest time through lessons on citizenship, etc. But I think it's growing very organically, and there are international movements that have developed those ideas and standards. So I think as long as it grows organically and people hold themselves as the example for what they want online platforms to be, I think there will be a lot of responsible citizens emerging in the coming days.